and when you're ready.
I'm ready. I have you kicking it off. That's why I'm waiting on you. This awkwardness. It says so we can call the meeting to order.
I was telling Don, you have to get public.
Oh,
first.
I'm so
He's gotta
sorry.
do a step.
Everything
And
is
you're
good.
kind of fuzzy in the room too, by the way. So I'm sorry if I'm not picking up on that.
All right, Don, what'd you say?
Everything is good to go.
Okay, I'm gonna call to order the meeting of the. Today is September 24th. And I'm gonna ask Don to go ahead and take the roll.
All right. Ron Anthony. Julia Tella.
Here.
Kim Britt.
Here.
Amber Brown.
I'm here.
Molly Bruner.
Here.
Becky Bales.
Good morning, I'm here.
Carter Deers.
Here.
Jessica Frolick. Michelle Frisbee.
Here.
Kevin Glass.
Here.
Tracy Green.
Here.
Nicholas Henderson.
Here.
Don Lanoy.
Here.
Marlon Mazaros.
Present.
Kelly Mitchell.
Here.
Kurt Mortensen.
Here, and the halo effect over my head just follows me naturally.
Becca Muscat.
Here.
John Shiro.
Here.
Toby Steffens.
Here, it's Toby Stevens.
Stevens. Sorry.
Okay.
Lane Sutherland.
I am here. Password to work. Thank you.
Jennifer Verdea. Okay. We do have a quorum.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. I just wanted to let you all know today's going to be a little bit of a different meeting because we are waiting on some policy development. We have an opportunity, and we have a lot of new members. We have an opportunity to take a breath and bring everybody up to speed on how things work. So that's what we're going to do today. And the first item we have to do, though, is the last piece of business. So we're going to approve the agenda, approve the minutes, and then we're going to get into a little bit of a different agenda with making sure that we all know who each other is, who we all are, and what the purpose of CSEC is, and what we're working on right now. So that's the gist of what's going to happen today. So welcome. I'm really glad to see you all here. The next item on our agenda, the next official item on our agenda is to approve the agenda and approve the minutes from August 27th. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes from August 27th.
So moved, Barb Weckman Brecky.
Right, I have a motion by Barb Weckman Brecky. Do we have a second?
Second, Richard Mortensen.
Second, we had a lot of seconds, but I'm going to call Marlon Mazaros as the second on that one. Thank you. Any discussion on the agenda or the minutes? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote to approve those.
All right. Julia Tella.
Yes.
Kim Britt.
Yes.
Amber Brown.
Yes.
Molly Bruner.
Yes.
Becky Bales.
Yes.
Carter Deers.
Yes.
Michelle Frisbee.
Yes.
Kevin Glass.
Aye.
Tracy Green.
Yes.
Nicholas Henderson.
Yes.
Don Lanoy.
Yes.
Marlon Mazaros.
Yes.
Kelly Mitchell,
Yes.
Kurt Mortensen,
Aye.
Becca Muscat,
Yes.
John Shiro,
Yes.
Toby Stevens,
Yes.
Lane Sutherland,
Yes.
and that is a unanimous vote for the attending members.
Great. So with that, the motion is approved unanimously. And for those of you who are new to the committee, we get to do that roll call vote on every motion because of the fact that we are hybrid, and that's what the law currently requires for open meeting law, which we're going to learn more about later today. Molly, I'm going to kick it over to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So for those who don't know me, my name is Molly Bruner. I'm the current Community Corrections Director for Scott County. I am also currently the MACAC president, except as of maybe 5:30 p.m. this evening, up at our conference, we will see a transition for MACAC representatives. And so Cami Gens is going to be the incoming or the current president going forward after today. So I do want to, as we go through introductions, Becky Bales is our past president representative on this committee. And so she will be transitioning off and Cami will be coming on as the formal representatives for MACAC in the next month. So just to give you, that transitions around this time every year for our agency. We just do it at our annual conference, which happens to be in the fall. So that is me. I am taking, so something that I feel, well, let me back up a second here. We're going to do an icebreaker. So those of you that know me well know that I love icebreakers, and some of you are cringing right now and some of you are as excited as me. But I always say to staff and anybody I do these with, there like literally is research with this, that if you get people, especially in a hybrid situation, talking within the first 15 minutes of a meeting, you have more engagement throughout. So there's your little public service nugget for the day. But so we're going to do that since we have the time to get to know each other. And I think it's important. This one in particular is interesting, the question I'm going to ask. So please give your introduction of yourself, where you work. And the question to answer is, what are you passionate about? And it's interesting. We came up with this question when we were prepping for the meeting a little while ago. And I just recently dropped my third son off at school. So I'm currently a new empty nester. And you will not be shocked, those that know me, that I actually do some of these questions and icebreakers with my family and practice them. So it was funny because this particular question was asked at his freshman orientation and he was excited to share it with me. I'm like, no kidding, I'm going to ask this question later this week. So what are you passionate about? And I will answer first. And I think that honestly, what I truly am passionate about teaching, and that shows up in my work. I was a former trainer in community corrections for many years, and I continue to teach at Metropolitan State University in the Human Service LADC program. And I keep that truly because I absolutely love that school. I know it may sound cliche, but I feel like by the end of it, I learned just as much as I hope that I am sharing about what I know. So I do teach in their counseling class for undergraduate and motivational interviewing for their graduate level courses. And yeah, so I continue to love that. So for the ease of I'm going to go around the Zoom room here, and then maybe Kelly, you can help the in-room folks since I can't quite see who's there. So Becky, I do have you next on my Zoom list here.
Good morning. Thank you, Molly. Sometimes I make fun of Molly with her icebreakers because she does a lot of them, but I really do appreciate it because it's a nice opportunity to get to know folks around the room. So this is my last official meeting. I want to thank everyone. I really appreciate this group. It's exciting to be part of this group. What I'm passionate about, well, I have a lot of things, right? I want to talk about my family. I want to talk about, but for work, when I'm thinking about work, I'm thinking about the work we get to do. I look at this as not a job. I look at this as something that I show up every day and get to make big impacts in the lives of so many across Minnesota. When you think about what we get to do with policy changes, and we get to do as probation agents, we get to do as victim advocates in the community, whatever it might be, we have a huge responsibility, but we also have a huge honor to serve these folks and to continuously improve. So when it goes to think about learning and improvement and always doing better than we did yesterday. So I get excited about my job every day, and just to be part of this group. I also am impressed with this group because we are continuing to push the envelope. We're continuing to use best practices and do more and more with folks, and I'm excited about that. So learning, doing the work that we get to do with people, those are some of the things I'm passionate about.
Thanks, Becky. I have Don next on the list. Oh, we have two Dons, don't we? I have Don Lanoy. I hope I said that last name right.
I'm Don Lanoy. I'm the Sibley County Attorney. I'm appointed by the Minnesota County Attorneys Association. I hate icebreakers. I would say that's my passion, is not liking icebreakers.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Love it. Fair enough.
Kevin Glass.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Kevin Glass, Itasca County Probation Director. I'm the current Minnesota Association of Corrections or County Probation Officers, MACPO President. I'm here on this committee representing the Evidence-Based Practices Statewide Advisory Committee as the chair. So that's why I'm on this committee representing that role. Professional wise, what I'm passionate about, I would say collaboration. And working together to make, communities, cities, counties, the state, just a better place to live and work. And that's obviously in the area of probation. How do we serve our clients the best, and how do we, public safety is number one, right? So I think collaboration, we can't do it all alone. We can't work in silos. So I think having this committee is a great step in bringing us together and reaching those goals. So for the new members on here, this is actually a really, really great committee to be on because we're actually making changes. And I'm sure some of you have been on committees and work groups and like talk, and like nothing ever happens. Where it's actually like things are being accomplished and done, and we're actually putting things in practice. So that's my little bit for how great this is. And I just truly believe this is a great committee and a lot of great work that's being done. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Kurt, Commissioner Martinson.
Good morning, Kurt. It's just fine. I'm a Otter Tail County Commissioner on the Community Supervision Advisory Committee. I represent the Association of Minnesota Counties. And in terms of what I am passionate about, a little bit of a spin-off on what Kevin just stated, but community connections and building those relationships, whether that's in my commissioner capacity or in service organizations in the community or in the faith community, but it's building those relationships, forging those relationships, and on serving on the Community Supervision Advisory Committee is an extension of that passion, and I am very impressed with the work that we have accomplished thus far, and still have work to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas Henderson.
Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. Nick Henderson, Family and Children's Director in Stearns County. I'm a representative of MACSA, which is the Minnesota Association of County Social Services Administrators. I think one of the things that I'm passionate about is system change and finding ways to improve processes so that we can really serve the people better. I've been passionate about that for a long time. Making the transition from community corrections to family and children's has really made me realize we have some systems that could definitely benefit from some improvement.
Thank you. Sorry, my mute button there. Tracy Green.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Green. I am the Probation Director in Wabasha County. I am representing MACPO, the Minnesota Association of County Probation Officers, on CSAC. I have been in probation 35 years, been a director for 18, and I had a hard time with this passionate because I agree with everything that's been said. I would say I'm passionate about supporting others, that being professionally with my working with clients, working with my team, working with my county partners, working statewide on these committees, and also then in my personal life with my family, friends. And I had to take it one, I have to take it one step further, other than just professional. I got to tell you what I'm passionate about personally, which is the Minnesota Vikings. Becky knew what I was going to say. Have been supporting the Vikings for years. Grew up a fan because my dad was a fan. I'm a part of a group of 13 women, and we go to an away Vikings game every year, which I've been doing for 21 years. And this year I'm taking it a step up, and I leave tomorrow and I'm going to Dublin and London for the back-to-back games. So school, go Vikes, and welcome to everyone on the committee.
I could tell you were passionate. That was, and what an epic trip you'll take. So thank you for that. All right, Amber.
Sorry. Hi everyone. I'm Amber Brown, and let me see. I am like an individual with experience. I've been in the system before, and that's why I am here on this call. And also, I'm the executive director of Black Butterfly Women's Services. We provide housing to formerly incarcerated women. The thing that I'm passionate about is helping the women transition successfully. I like to see when they come to my home and transition, into their own places, they get their kids back and all of the things that warms my heart. So that's my passion. I'm excited to be here. Thank all of you.
Thank you as well.
You're welcome.
And Kim B.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim and I am here as a lived experience. I am at work right now, so that's why I have my camera off, but I am a real person. I was trying to turn it on just for a quick second, but it keeps telling me to go to my settings, so I'm not gonna deal with that. Otherwise, I'll probably get logged off again. But one thing I am a current program coordinator for a group home, and I'm really passionate about supporting individuals overcoming challenges and helping them build their skills and confidence and their independence. And how I do that is I use both my professional experience and my own journey from recovery. And to me, it makes meaningful impacts. So I'm really passionate about that. I also do love the Vikings. I only wish I could go to all those games, but yeah, that's who I am.
Thanks, Kim. Michelle.
My name is Michelle. I'm also a lived experience person and serving on this committee. My regular job is at an HVAC company, and I'm there right now. But what I'm passionate about is criminal justice reform. I'm working with a group currently called the Hope Act, where we're trying to raise awareness and gain support and hopefully pass the Hope Act by 2026. And it's just basically something that will allow people that are currently incarcerated to be if they're, as long as they're not a threat to public safety, that they could be released into society early if they are terminally ill, just so that they can, have an opportunity to die with some dignity and have some grace in their life before they go. So there is already something on the books in Minnesota about that, but they're not really utilizing it very much. So we're trying to get it like a medical release board organized and some stuff like that, and to get it passed into law, hopefully in 2026.
Thank you. Lane Sutherland.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lane Sutherland. I am Chief Public Defender for the 9th District Public Defender's Office with the Board of Public Defense. And so the 9th District, Kevin and I are in, we're both out of Grand Rapids, but the 9th District covers 17 counties in Northwest Minnesota. So it's a really large rural area. What am I passionate about? Though I echo, I think, Don's comments. However, I was hoping for an easy icebreaker, like what's your favorite food? But this one is easy because my passion is it's really just working with people. I've been in this role with the public defender's office since I was a law clerk in law school, and I just find joy and working with people, and particularly with people in rural areas, and helping, whether it's my team, my leadership team, my staff, it's the clients that we work with, whoever it is, just really finding ways to meaningfully connect in their communities so that these communities can continue to thrive and grow, and rural Minnesota or rural America stays strong. So I return to the areas that raised me and made me the person I am to serve my communities. So that is my passion.
Thank you. And I believe this is where I'm reliant on names on Zoom and did not write it down. I apologize. But from Grand Portage, if you don't mind reintroducing and sharing your passion for us.
Sure, thank you. And I'm sitting in our council chambers here. I'm Toby Stevens. I'm a member of the Grand Portage Tribal Council. And I actually wanted to say that I was passionate about Tracy Green and very envious that she's leaving for Dublin. I wish I was getting on the plane with her. Grand Portage, we're a small reservation. I was appointed through the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, which is a great honor to have tribal leadership recognize me and my ability to sit on this committee. You know, my passion, I think, is critical thinking, taking care of the rights of tribal citizens and others, and, you know, making life good for others, like Lane just mentioned. I think as you get to know me in my work here, you know, you'll see that, and I do hope that I'm able to, you know, provide valuable input and work into the group, and that outcomes do reflect tribal nations in Minnesota. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone online. I think I got everyone, and I will kick it over to Kelly.
All right, so I'll start us off in the room here. So I'm Kelly Mitchell, and I'm Assistant Commissioner of the Community Services and Reentry for the Department of Corrections. I'm one of the DOC's representatives on this committee and one of the co-chairs of the committee right now. So there's 3 co-chairs, just so that we make sure we hit all the buckets here. There's 3 co-chairs, one from each of the 3 delivery systems. What I'm passionate about is I was gonna not go work, but everyone went work, so you guys should go non-work. Yeah, I'm being encouraged to go non-work. Okay, so I'm gonna say what I'm passionate about non-work wise is music. Actually, I'm a member of the Twin Cities Women's Choir. We have a concert coming up in November in case you're interested, and it's just always been something that I've loved to engage in. I'm not a professional. I barely know how to read music, but I love listening to music and making music. And I was gonna say something else about that. What was it? And I just love the opportunity that I have to do that with the choir. It's like a place every week where I get to be something else than what I do in work all day. So that's what I'm passionate about. Let's kick it over and start with Becca.
Yeah, so I'm Becca Muscat. I work for the Minnesota Alliance on Crime. We're a coalition of victim advocates throughout the state. Obviously, I'm passionate about crime victim services, but I most importantly am deeply passionate about the Minnesota Lynx. Dyed my hair pink for the playoffs. I'm wearing a Lynx shirt right now, so I'm really glad you asked about what are we passionate about. I was there last night for the roller coaster devastating loss that we had, but that's okay. It was only game 2. So I can't attend game 5, so I'm really hoping there isn't a game 5. Yeah, that's what I'm most passionate about right now is go Lynx.
Excellent. Carter.
Carter Deers, Field Services Director for the Minnesota Department of Corrections. I think my passion, I'm thinking kind of spills over into both sides. So I've always been passionate about staff development, which also looks like community building on my personal side. It's a lot of the same skills, quite honestly, and a lot of the same passion, but I just think that when it comes to community building or building culture within an office or it just brings me joy, and going from maybe where there's a place where there's problems to working through those problems. I've also been passionate in my work life about implementation science, have been for many years. I do a lot of workshops with it. I have in the past, so much lately. But just the science behind how is it that we can build culture around continuous quality improvement, the infinite mindset, those things that where we can build that into the staff culture, where they can continually look to the next idea, next process. Thank you.
John.
John Sherrill with Sitka County Court Services Director, MACPOL representative on the committee. I'm the MACPOL past president, also co-chair for the CSAC, along with Molly and Kelly. So Tracy, first I got to ask, are you going to share with the group what your group's name is? They're a large group. If you've ever seen them on TV, you'll recognize them. And they're on TV, I think, a few times because they're a large group and they're all decked out. But will you share your name, Tracy, or?
13 women's, we refer ourselves to as the Hags. And
They're
Boyd,
fun. They're great to see.
and Boyd Hooper did do a special on us last year
Yes.
of our group and our passion for the Vikings.
Yes, Skull. So, you know, a lot of stuff has been said. I think like everybody can say, hey, you know, I'm passionate about that, passionate about that. But really one of the big passions I have and have for our staff is that work-life balance. You know, when I'm at work, I'm really passionate about, you know, focusing on work and doing what we have to, but also having that balance when you're at home and just, you know, kind of putting work aside and being with your family. So that's a work-life balance.
Thanks. I'm Marlon Mazares. I am Director of Housing and Support Services at Partners Behavioral Health Care. I'm on the committee representing direct service providers. I'm also a person with lived experience, both incarceration and recovery. And so I'm, I guess, in a professional perspective, I'm passionate about helping supervision and service providers continue and grow and work together and not see each other as the enemy. Been trying to get that done for at least a couple of years and still just running into stuff that, like, you know, we have your counselors that see the agent as the, you know, they just want to lock my client up or whatever. And then sometimes the agents come in and they're like a bull in a china shop, coming through the door and, you know, want a bunch of information and whatever. And so, passionate about seeing that work together. I'm also passionate about seeing good outcomes for people that are returning, especially from incarceration, but also just in recovery, SED recovery in general. I love R&R stuff, the science part of it, and all of that is intriguing to me. I learned about it actually during my last incarceration and haven't let go of it. And so I'm happy to work for a company that not only sees SUD, but also looks at criminogenic risk factors and implements that as a part of our treatment planning and all of that. We take all that into consideration and see the person as an individual, build a treatment plan to move them forward from that point. So personal level, I love to ride motorcycles, but I'm also fostering my newborn grandbabies, twin grandbabies right now. So haven't got to do a lot of that this year. And so I guess in that I've also developed probably a deeper passion for the outcome part of the work that I do to build a better world for the world that my grandbabies and grandchildren are going to grow up in. So that's me.
Good morning. My name is Julie Atella. I work here at Wilder Research. So welcome to those of you that were able to join. I'm a research manager and I've been at Wilder for a long time, and I've trying to think of things that are cooler than some of the things that you have said in terms of being passionate. So I'll just do professionally, that blends into my personal, but just as a researcher, of course, learning and listening and trying to figure out ways to make what we learn turn into action and change. So I think the passion there is just the learning piece. I also love music. I don't have any talents except for I'm really good at the air guitar. And, I just can demonstrate maybe sometime in the future. But I really, really love traveling. And so that is an opportunity, I think, to learn. And a lot of my travel is around seeing bands internationally and that kind of stuff. So I try to intertwine that. But yeah, I'm here representing the community research piece of CSAC, and I'm glad to be here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Barb Weckman-Brecky. I'm a county commissioner in Scott County and here representing the Association of Minnesota Counties. Yeah, I hate to be duplicative, but I think my passions are very similar to Bert's and John's and Kevin. I'm a connector. I love to connect people with each other, people with resources in my professional lives, because this isn't a full-time gig. I have a couple of them, and in personal. And I just, that's what it's what I'm good at. And that's what I like to do, because that's how we build community. And that's how I can impact making the world a better place. I don't have a ton of skills and talents, but at least I can connect the people. So.
I think that's everyone here in the room.
All right. Well, thank you all. Even for those that, didn't love it, I appreciate learning more about you all and us getting to know each other here. So we are going to move into the next agenda item. And just from a facilitator, are you, Don, going to share it and move through it? Or did you want me to do it on this end?
I can share it. How's that?
That's fine. Yep. So I'm going to kick it over to Kelly here in just a minute, but a little bit of a background on this. Well, one, again, today, as Kelly said in the beginning, is a time to invite people in that are new, and also to connect with where we're at with CSAC, what CSAC, what we have done and what we have to do going forward. And this is actually kind of twofold, because part of this presentation really has been asked for from other spaces and places. So whether it's MACAC or any of you and your agencies, looking at, how does CSAC work? How do policies and recommendations from the many subgroups that Kelly will go over in just a minute, how do these things flow back and forth between us and subgroups? How do they ultimately get approved? Timing. And so there's been a lot of questions just on process. And so we thought that what we would do is, so John and Kelly and I put this together, and we're going to deliver this at MACAC this week. And again, want to share this out. One of the things that we really want feedback on, and we're going to have some conversations after this, is what are we missing? What do we have right? This is meant to be, we can change it, right? This is our work as a collective. And so we just wanted to, again, walk through it. Also hoping that people that are new to the committee, we just take a pause and bring people up to speed as well, right? So multiple reasons for wanting to walk through it in this way today. So with that said, I will kick it over to Kelly to get us started.
All right, so you guys are also the guinea pigs, because Molly and I, as I said, we're delivering this tomorrow. So you are the practice group for our delivery. So Don, go ahead and move to the next slide. All right, so first of all, just a reminder, a grounding on how we came to be as a community. Back in 2021, the state requested assistance from the Council of State Governments to assess delivery systems and look at a lot of different things. One of them being what the funding looked like for community supervision. There used to be somewhere like between 7 and 9 funding streams. I can never remember the total number, but there were multiple funding streams for community supervision. We all had different practices. There were, just a lot of varying outcomes across the state. So one of the big questions was, could we do something to make that funding more uniform and more equitable across the state, and to start to look at policy that maybe every system would adhere to. So trying to get practice in line with research and a little bit more uniform across the state. One of the things CSG did was interview people on supervision And I came back with the finding that it's really confusing to be on supervision and have the practices vary as much as they do across the state, especially sometimes people are on supervision in more than one county at the same time. And they're getting, different policies and practices thrown at them. So that was one of the things. So the legislature in 2023 created the Community Supervision Advisory Committee and also changed the funding formula at the same time. So with that, this group was created and we were given a list of deliverables for things that we needed to develop. And we'll go through those in just a moment, but 401.17 is the statute. If you want to take a look at it, it's also posted on our website. Next slide. So here's the membership that is set by statute. Basically, what you can see is that we have member representatives from each of the 3 delivery systems. So MACAC, CPO means County Probation Office, and then the DOC. We also have representation from county commissioners because ultimately community supervision is a county-based system and counties are have the choice as to what type of system they have and they're going to have and whether or not they're going to backfill additional resources towards the system if the state funding doesn't cover everything that the county is trying to do. So county commissioners are really important members of this as well. We have behavioral health treatment providers, and as you heard, we have a couple of different appointing authorities for that. We have representatives from tribal nations that are appointed by the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council. A couple of reasons for that. One of them being that under the new law, tribal nations can now also become a supervision delivery system if they're interested in moving in that direction. If they're not, there's still funding available for them to do some level of supervision. Most tribal nations that are accessing that funding right now are actually working on reentry programs, but they're doing some work in this space as well. So we needed to make sure they're represented. Of EBP advisory chair. And then I'm going to skip around on the right here because originally we had a researcher and people with lived experience and victims advocate members. The new folks on this list are prosecutor, defense attorney, and judges. Those individuals were not represented originally, but CSAC felt that their voices needed to be at the table. So we requested that of the legislature, and the legislature actually did change that. So that's why some of the new folks are here at the table. So we thought your voices were important. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the statute sets up 11 deliverables that we need to work on. You'll see as we go through these, a couple of them are crossed out because either we feel like they've already been done or we're not working on them right now. So I'm not going to go through these in detail right now. These are listed out, and in a minute, Molly is going to give an update on where we are with all of these. But basically, the statute listed out 11 areas where we needed to make recommendations. And so far, many of the recommendations that we've been making are we need policy in this space, or we need training in this space, or we need to do some sort of implementation in this space. So that's been the work of the past year. So here's the first 6. We don't have limiting conditions of supervision. It's crossed out right now because we're not actively working on it. We actually think it may have already been dealt with before we became a committee. So we're not so interested in looking at that one right now. So we'll go to the next slide. And then these are the 7 through 11. Evaluating outcomes for grant participants is crossed out because that's reliant on there being funding in a particular pot. And right now there isn't funding in that pot. So there's no work for the committee to do in that space right now. We'll hit all the rest of these, as I said, when Molly starts to tell you where we're at with them. All right, we'll go to the next slide. Here's the structure of how CSAC has decided to do its work. So the legislature created CSAC. CSAC is tasked under law with making recommendations to the commissioner in those 11 areas. There's a dotted line over to the commissioner. The commissioner is not like a direct supervisor or anything of us, but there's a relationship there because the DOC is the entity that issues policies that will be relevant to the state. So our job is to work up those issues and then send them up to the commissioner as recommendations. With 11 deliverables, there's a lot more work than we could do as a single committee. But when we were created, we knew that there were already groups that existed that were working on some of these issues. And then CSG, the Council of State Governments, was here at the time, and they had committed staff to the state and created two groups themselves, the Risk Assessment Group and JRI2, which JRI stands for Justice Reinvestment Initiative. So they had created those groups to work on some of the issues. And so as CSAC was forming, storming, and norming, we figured out that we needed some additional help to develop recommendations on all of those deliverables. And we connected with each of these committees and asked if they would take on specific topics. And all of them agreed to do that. The workload study is actually the one exception to that. That was a subcommittee that CSAC created on its own. So basically, we look for groups that are out there, or we create subcommittees. We assign work to them or ask them to take on work. And then they themselves can spin off additional groups if they need to bring in more expertise to address the topic. So for instance, JRI2 also has a group that's working specifically on case planning. And then our expectation is that these groups that we've identified at the top level are the main conduits of communication back up to us, and that they'll review any of the recommendations or policy language before it comes back to CSAC. So that's sort of the structure of how we've been doing the work. And in a minute, I'll go through more of the process flow. Any questions on the structure before I leave here? Okay, we'll go to the slide. So this slide is just taking those groups and showing you where we placed the work. So supervision standards is living with JRI2. There were a couple of groups that had specific supervision areas that they were working on. So there were, the Domestic Violence Steering Committee is working on a policy related, supervision standard related to intimate partner violence, how we work with people who are and have domestic assaults in their past. And then we had, there was also a separate group that was working on ISR, intensive supervised release. So that that group worked on that specific supervision standard. But JRI2 is working on all the rest of them. Like, what's the full set of supervision standards that we are hoping to get to in the future? There's a risk assessment group that's working on deliverable 2. The case planning deliverable has been assigned to JRI2. The deliverable about making sure that our supervision is gender responsive, culturally responsive, trauma informed, that's been assigned to the EVP Advisory Committee. The behavior response grid was assigned to JRI2. Training and quality assurance was assigned to EVP advisory. The topic of making sure there's no financial penalty for utilizing early discharge. Basically, you shouldn't lose your funding because someone did well and you were able to discharge them early. That was assigned off to the workload study. And then we have the workload study deliverable itself. So there's that group that we created specifically for that topic. Next slide, please. So here is the process. So that was the structure. This is the process. And I know it's a little hard to read, especially from far away, but bear with me as we walk. So I'll walk you through it. And then Molly will take us through the specific deliverables and where we're at. So there's number 1 starts on the bottom left corner. So basically we have a topic. Right now it's all those statutory deliverables. Step one is we assign those to a group to work on, right? Step two, that subcommittee or work group, they work on that deliverable. And if they need to spin it off and get more people to the table because it's in a specialized area, they can do that. They can create another group. Or they can create a subgroup. Sometimes it's a subcommittee of the committee. But they can create other groups to bring the right people to the table, but we're relying on them to make sure the right people are at the table. Number three, the chairs of the subcommittees or these work groups are expected to give monthly progress reports to CSAC. So that's that spreadsheet that you get every month. And probably it bugs your eyes out, but that's them communicating back with us. Where are they in terms of their deliverable? We usually give them a deadline and it's on that spreadsheet. So they need to tell us, like, are they going to meet that deadline? Are they running into problems? Do they have questions? Or just we're doing fine and it'll be there on time. So sometimes they can tell us that they also can tell us that if they've run into a question and I'm not sure how to proceed, it's going to affect their recommendation. They'll put it in there and we'll give them time on the agenda if needed to kind of go through that question. Once they're done, number four is they'll come back, they'll bring the item back to CSAC, and we expect the chair or somebody they've designated from that work group to present their recommendations to CSAC. When they bring it back, CSAC will discuss the recommendations that they've brought to us, and there's two paths that it could take from there. The first one is if the item generates a lot of questions or new things to think about that maybe weren't fleshed out in the original proposal, we'll provide feedback and we'll ask the subcommittee or work group to take it back and work on it a little bit more. If that's not the case, if everything is looking great, then what we'll do is we'll say, great, thanks for bringing that up, and we'll take a pause on it. That's basically our first reading. And then between that month and the next month, everyone on CSAC is expected to sort of vet that policy or recommendation with the groups that they represent. So for sure, they have to go back to the 3 delivery systems because we all have to do the same thing, where that's the goal here is to get our practice to align. So we need to make sure all 3 delivery systems agree with the recommendation. But we also want to hear if, victims advocates agree with the recommendation, or if people with lived experience have something to add that we should change, or judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys. So that's your opportunity to vet that with the constituent group that you represent. And then so then it will come back to us. Number 6 means it comes back the next month. And we'll discuss the feedback that we might have received from that process. If it's all good, we have sat here in the room in the past and edited on the fly based on the feedback to finalize the policy or the recommendation. And if we can do that, we'll do that. If another big issue was raised, then we might have to send it back to the committee and ask them to work on it a little bit more, right? So if we can approve it at that meeting, we will approve it and we'll send it on. But if something big comes out of the woodwork, then we won't be sending it on. We'll be asking for a little bit more work. All right, next slide. So number 7, it goes, if we can approve it, if it's a policy or recommendation, we send it up to the commissioner basically. And the commissioner has an opportunity to look at it. The real issue here is it policy? And is the commissioner going to make policy on this point? And so the commissioner has like a little bit of a veto power here where the commissioner could theoretically send something back to us and tell us what the commissioner is looking for. If not, the commissioner will move it on to step 8, which is moving it into the DOC policy review process. Where basically we have a unit that's gonna, do some final checks with it, make sure it passes them all, and move it to our exec council for one last review. They're like really good at finding the thing that you thought you spelled right, but 12 people later, it's not been spelled right. They do every single time. So they'll do that, and then it will be passed. So step 9 is the policy gets a go live date. That live date is set for all 3 delivery systems. 10 is the delivery systems will then implement that policy in their respective departments. And then 11 and 12 brings us right back to the why are we here? 11 is if that policy is adopted, it's going to become a condition of a community supervision subsidy to follow that policy. And that's written right in the law. And the comprehensive plans that all the counties submit in order to receive their subsidy has to demonstrate that they are complying with that policy or they're working towards compliance with that policy. So that's the connection back to the funding formula and where we all started with all of this. So I know that's a lot. I'm going to pause before I pass it back to Molly. Any questions?
I had a question. That was really comprehensive. I'm like, oh, makes sense what we're doing. For number 9, I just was curious, are all the go live dates always the same date or? Okay, so
yeah, it's one policy. So
one date.
When that date is set,
okay,
it will go into effect. And so that's actually, it's a great point to raise because it's something that we as a committee always need to keep in mind. Is there like a specific date that we want to recommend it go live so that we can be sure that everyone can come into compliance with it at that time? We should always be thinking about that. Harder.
I think in the hierarchy, kind of how, well, yet another slide is said that the EBP advisory committee is kind of reports up. In here, in the process, how do you see that the EBP advisory committee kind of fits between those, if they do and maybe they don't, between those, the committees that are assigned and CSAC?
Well, I guess right now the answer is that they're one of the committees we assign work to. Okay. So, but they, I think you're asking a bigger question is, do they have a role beyond that? And I don't know that we've really discussed that as a group, other than to say that we think they're important. And we have expressed the importance of that group, and that I guess what I would go back to say is right now we have all those other groups, right? Because we had 11 deliverables thrown at us at once. But we won't always be in that space where we have so many things to work on in time. And so I think John, Molly, and I have talked about the fact that I think in the future, EBP would be the work group for us, the main one that would be asked to take on new work.
Got it.
But right now, there's way too much for them to do that.
And I was just going to reiterate that that was the conversation we had, is that a lot of this fits under the EBP advisory committee, right? However, with so much going on, it was better at this point to keep the subgroups or the committee separated. Eventually, it likely would be under subgroups under EBP, and they would actually report to the EBP advisory committee, which would ultimately report to CSAC.
Okay.
Other questions before we move on?
Yes, it's Toby. I was wondering, what's the most recent policy to pass through this process? And in your introduction, you mentioned that one of the things that this committee was attempting to do is, establishing statewide standards. And you mentioned the crossing of county lines in some instances, and that certainly happens in Indian country. So have those lines been set, or have they changed, or
A really good question, and I'm gonna see if my co-chairs also have something to add to this. But what I would say is what we're trying to do is to the extent possible, make experience as similar as we can from county to county. We haven't really
Okay.
talked about what does that mean? How does that intersect with tribal nations that are also providing supervision services? Because I think that the intent with that funding is different, which is that tribal nations probably will have a better idea of how to provide supervision in a way that's different and unique for their members. So that, because we know that people who are Native American have some of the highest revocation rates of any people in our system. So we're trying something different there. And I don't think it needs to or should be the same, but that's my read on it. And I'm really not speaking for the committee when I say that, but we haven't discussed it more than that.
No, and I think that's well said, Kelly, but you're right, we haven't discussed that. There is still the county lines, if you want to say per se. If I'm supervising Waseca County and I live in Steele County, we transfer it to the neighboring county. However, as Kelly mentioned, that tribal supervision will be different likely, or is different, and that's why that funding stream was set up differently, I think. So that may look different, but yeah. And then last policy we approved was I think the coaching or the training, coaching, and quality assurance, and it's been approved by CSAC. It hasn't been implemented yet, so it goes to the commissioner next, and kind of go down the line that we just talked about. The one that actually is probably in the latest phase of all this would be the ISR, intensive supervised release policy, which is I believe has been approved by Commissioner Schnell. So it's kind of at that level, but that's the furthest along policy that we've seen through CSAC.
Thank you.
Are there other questions on process? Because you also ask an intro to like my section, which I think is great. I can't see the room so much. The silence will say maybe move on to the next one. We can fill in more of that. And thanks for that question. I absolutely am, and I'm glad you're here to give the input as well as we look through any of these deliverables, right? That all of us have different lenses, and that's what Kevin, you were very passionate about this group, and I agree with you. It's a well-comprised group to hopefully get the best set of standards we possibly can for Minnesotans. So yeah, I'm going to go through high level where we're at with all of the deliverables that Kelly mentioned. I'm certainly not on all these subgroups. So if there are people on these subgroups, I will pause after each one to make sure if there's important things you want to add, that you do so, and to make sure that I'm capturing all of these things correctly. So the first one is this really broad category of statewide supervision standards. And there are subgroup or, subparts to this that even John mentioned as well. So one of the policies that John indicated has been approved and moved on is that ISR supervision, that's intensive supervised release. And that was a subgroup that existed before this group, and we just kind of continued on with moving that through. I will say we just had a presentation by the ISR department, or the unit in our particular area from the Department of Corrections. And it's really great to see how some of these standards are already operationalized and implemented, and how their approach is different with individuals on intensive supervised release. And so we can actually see some of the things happening as Kelly went through that whole process, happening in real life and impacting people as they're on supervision now. The next policy that is in progress and is part of that one subgroup is the risk assessment policy. And part of that work is that, so there's some things that were agreed upon. As an example, and I'll get to that in the next slide, I guess, with the LSCMI being our general recidivism tool, but the subgroup is still working on this particular piece. Also in progress is the case planning policy and the IPV, interpersonal violence policy as well. So we just wanted to say, like, there's lots of different things that make up statewide supervision standards, as well as JRI2 is looking at the APPA recommendations. So those were put out in the last, year and a half or so. I think it was in 2024. That is, the APPA is the National American Probation and Parole Association. recommendations that came out to say this is what we're recommending at a high level supervision looks like in the country. And so what that subgroup is doing is taking all of the recommendations and looking through them and thinking about like, what does that mean for Minnesota? What should we maybe recommend in a policy or in our recommendations back to this group to CSAC? And so a lot of, again, that's back to like, we need all of these folks and subject matter experts to unpack all of this because it's a lot, but it's a lot of good work. And so we're just trying to bring it together so that we, as whatever delivery system we're in, can apply this in our particular jurisdictions. So I'll pause for a minute before going to the next one. Anything someone would like to add on number 1? Or questions? Okay, we can move on to the second one. So breaking down the risk and needs assessment tool deliverable. As I indicated, the level of service case management inventory tool will be used as the primary risk and needs tool. And there's a validation study underway through the University of Nebraska. And so they are looking at validating it for Minnesota. And they have focus groups going on right now. There's just a lot of different things happening in this space that is really exciting. And so they'll be looking at what does this mean for Minnesota? What do cut points look like for Minnesota? And just all things related to that as we move forward with then what does that mean for supervision? Like what do caseloads eventually look like? And how high of a dosage, how high of intensity do we want to give certain individuals and things of that nature? So this really is kind of a core assessment tool that guides our work. What else is happening in this subgroup though is what you might hear called trailer tools, or they're basically additional tools that you might use with individuals. So you can think about it as like if you're working with somebody on chemical dependency, you might have a comprehensive assessment or certain CD type assessments. You have mental health assessments, right? There's lots of different assessments that people may have. And in the criminal justice world, the LSCMI is that general, it's a predictive tool for how likely are you compared to others to maybe commit another offense, right? And the trailer tools, or again, those additional tools might be on subpopulations such as how likely are you to commit a new sex offense? And so there are additional tools that you might use. The acute and static, which is also called and again, correct me if I'm not getting all of these acronyms right, as I just try to like roll them out, is the dynamic risk assessment, or the DRA. So I did listen in on some subject matter experts on that one related to this, and what they would say, for instance, on that as a recommendation is that you would want to use the LSCMI as a general recidivism tool, and you would want to use these specialized tools because they really are measuring different things. And so it's important that if you didn't use one or the other, you may lose case planning or, really working with somebody on particular areas that could be harmful. It could just be that you're missing helping the individual with their rehabilitation and their growth. So that whole subgroup is looking through lots of those different subsequent or trailer tools as well. And they will eventually make recommendations and through a policy up to this group as well. The last piece of this particular subgroup is a screener tool. So what that means is it's a short tool that there are some that exist. In fact, the LSCMI does have one. And what you do with that is a lot of times it's based on resources. We would love to give everybody a full comprehensive assessment every time somebody walks through the doors, and oftentimes that's just not possible. So there are tools that help us to say, okay, if we screen somebody, like it's kind of a yes, no, or that's what we're hoping for in the development of a Minnesota pre-screener tool, which is, does this person need a full assessment, or we're pretty much, the tool would tell us really this person is, pretty low risk. They're probably not going to need a whole lot of interventions. And so we may not need to do that full assessment tool on them. So this group, the CSAC group, did approve some internal folks from mostly it's Hennepin, Ramsey, and the Department of Corrections. But there is a representative, they're trying to take Minnesota data and do an analysis, and they're using that Oregon pre-screener, which has been validated, as a base tool. So it's a static tool, and what that means is that we're hoping that the items are static, so they don't change, that we can use automation so it doesn't rely on an interview. And so these are some of the things we don't know for sure what will come back from the research group when they take all of the data in Minnesota and decide what is the tool, or can there be a tool that does this for us? They will bring back those recommendations and that research to this group to say, this is what we found. This is, they're going to do a validation study. They're going to do all of those sorts of things. And we really do want it to connect to that LSCMI because that's already been decided to be our general recidivism tool. So that group is also underway in doing that research and development. And again, we'll be bringing that work and recommendations back to CSAC. Questions on this one, or what did I miss?
Molly, I'll just add that with that validation study, we did ask the vendor to look at some additional specific populations to give us to determine if the LSCMI is valid, like for gender. We specifically asked them to look at Native Americans to make sure that it's valid when it's used with that group. So we have a couple of different requests. So it's not just a general validation across the state.
Important point. Thank you. All right, we can move to the next one. So we combine these two. The reason for that is I'll start with actually behavior response grid. The recommendation in the deliverables was to really kind of stand up a behavior response grid, which is how do we, in a formal sense, and they do exist nationally and some portions of the state use them formally, which would really be, can you standardize when somebody does something that maybe needs a sanction or maybe needs an intervention or an accomplishment, so really incentivizing behavior, so that it doesn't look so different agency to agency or probation officer to probation officer, so that if all things are equal and somebody has a technical violation, let's say, of continuing to use drugs, that again, if we're looking at, if you literally had all things equal between two clients, generally speaking, that you wouldn't have profound differences in how somebody reacted or responded in a particular delivery system. And all of those principles are very, very meaningful to our work. And there's also, so this subgroup that it was working on or is working on the behavior response grid took additional research out there and came back to this group with a memo that really said, this is all a really important work, and we don't want those disparities or reactions across, PO to PO within an agency or even across delivery systems. But we think that this really needs to be embedded into our overall case planning with an individual or with a client. And I think that it needs to show up in how we coach people, how our supervisors do quality assurance, how we build in all of that. So although we're going through these deliverables and these policies as individual, in some ways siloed sort of practices, we're really looking at, they're very integrated, right? Which is why we as CSAC are looking at them from that, how does case planning, integrate with behavior response grid and integrate with the risk assessment one. I think it's important that those three in particular, case planning, risk assessment, and then we're going to get to the training and quality assurance, that we're looking at these together, even though we're writing them separately, because again, they all really are integrated with each other. And so the principles of the behavior response grid are being worked on and rolled into the case policy, and that is all in development. And those groups are working together to come up with the recommendations for CSAC to review. I'll pause on this one for comments or questions.
Molly,
go
ahead.
Just a quick comment. I guess I haven't, as we're going through this, and maybe it's integrated and it's just not on the face of it, but trauma informed and all of the stuff that we're doing. I know LSCMI, I don't know if it's more updated, if there has some of that in it now. I mean, one of the things that we're doing at a treatment provider is training all our staff in the TIDES model of trauma-informed assistance, supervision. So I don't know where we're at with all that, but it should be incorporated. It should be, agents should know when they're presenting a certain way to an individual, if there's something in the background that could be triggering to them that maybe needs to be adjusted on their end to, do their job better. So that's all.
Yes. No, it's so important. Actually, if you advance the slide, you are spot on. No, you are spot on. No, don't be sorry. This is the part of, I'm just so glad you all are here, because what if this wasn't the next slide? What you're saying is incredibly important to be integrated into all of the work that we do, which is, so deliverable 5, gender responsive, culturally appropriate, and trauma informed. And so this is, a major part. It really needs to be integrated. So all the policies we write, right? What is the lens that we're looking through? As you indicate, if we're working with somebody that has, and most of our people do have a trauma, right? And that varies in severity, of course, but it's all very, just being involved in the system, right, is in and of itself a traumatic experience. And so, no, we really want to make sure that what we're doing is very conscious of that, right? And in all of our practices. And so that includes the gender responsive, culturally appropriate as well. So the questions that you're bringing up, Toby, is this also falls here, right? Like, who is it that we're working with? So how do we work on ourselves as practitioners and professionals? How do we really show up and do the work that is necessary so that the person that is experiencing hopefully the right interventions in the right way, that we're doing that so that every single person in Minnesota has the best shot at success, right? And so part of this subgroup and what they're working on is, and they've come, there's a memo, I don't know if you call it a memo, Kevin, I think you were on this one, but some of the recommendations that we've already seen out of this group are, what are the trainings? Again, what is the work that people need in order to do this work well, to show up in this gender responsive, culturally appropriate, and trauma informed way? TIDES is one example of doing that. And there's other ways we can build those, these principles into, well, and the recommendation would be from all of us to the state is whatever model you're using, make sure it includes these things in a very real way. And training is one portion of it, but it's also then, how do we know that the training is actually working with the individuals that, the probation officers, the supervised release officers, et cetera. So whether that's, again, ethics and boundaries, responsivity, which is a very broad subject, but it's important that we concentrate on that because that's a key part of the risk need responsivity model. Again, all of our practices need to have these principles integrated, and it's who we hire. It's engaging all of you and other communities that may be unique in our particular jurisdictions or delivery systems, but how are we, it should be constantly something that we're focused on and striving for when we're doing our work. So I'll pause on this one too, either if I missed anything or hopefully that helps maybe that question or comment you had too.
Yeah, so I can touch on this. I'm working on this committee, the subcommittee, and this is one that the EBP CIO Advisory Committee has been tasked with to make recommendations on as well. So the last one, I think this was from the July one, we have updated it since and turned it into a policy format. And we're doing the same, what we had done with deliverable 8, we have a policy, and also we had an implementation guide. So with that, with this deliverable, we're going to have a policy that outlines like what all agencies must be doing, and trauma informed training, that's definitely part of it, and that's integrated along with the other ones. And then we're also going to have the implementation guide that won't be attached to it, but all agencies will have access to it, of how they could get these trainings, how they could get these resources, how they can take that next step for their agency, from just doing the bare minimum to like the platinum level, right, of what that looks like. And so there'll be more to, we're going to be presenting in November on this one. So there'll be more to come on that. But backing up, I just wanted to say for the new members, the majority of the, excuse me, the majority of the work that we're doing at CSAC is for adults on probation. So we haven't touched anything with like juveniles and like standards, like the LSCMI is for adults, not juveniles. So the focus right now is on the adults. And so I just want to put that out there, like, and then hopefully the next steps will be look at other probation populations, juveniles, pretrial, diversion, things like that.
Thanks, Kevin. Other questions or comments? All right, we can move on to the next one. So performance indicators for supervision. So there's a statewide working group that is working on metrics, definitions, and data standards. And what you see listed here are what's listed in the deliverable of things to report on from whatever delivery system or jurisdiction you're in. So briefly, it's really how many people are the individuals sentenced to supervision, the offense levels, our risk levels, et cetera, for those that are on supervision. They wanted to know our violation and revocation rates and the grounds for the violation. So why are we doing the violations or revocations? How many people are granted the early discharge from probation? And then individuals restructured on supervision, including imposition of new conditions of release. So these were initially, or these are the items in which are being asked for. And so what the statewide, we have, what's the best way to say this? How many systems does an average probation officer open up to do their work? A lot, right? And they don't all talk to each other necessarily in the way that we would love them to. And so a lot of work is being done to figure out how do we, first of all, I think that definition portion is really important. Are we all entering data into our respective systems? CSTS is a system you'll hear about that is a statewide system utilized for supervision mostly, but we also have systems such as you're going to hear S-Cube, statewide supervision system, which is also a state system. Now these two do integrate in some ways and not in all ways. And this could be an entire hour and a half, and it has been hours long presentation just to explain the complexity of all of these. What we know is that we have subject matter experts on this subgroup that are really trying to, for CSAC and for us moving forward in the legislature, what can we get now? What is defined now? What do we consistently enter now is step one. And then moving from that, how do we get there? So if it isn't, or we can't get it easily, then how do we get that? And again, there are things in place right now that are being built out in our respective systems so that we can get there. And so this will be an ongoing, I think at the moment, we're really working on what's not easy, but kind of what's readily available, and then move from there and keep growing and building, right? So this is something where we're not going to be able to get every single thing we want in the way we want it in a short period of time, but hopefully our long-term goal and CSAC being helpful in that guidance with this stuff will really be able to do that. The other thing I'd say to this too is that, again, not all jurisdictions have the resources to have, for instance, business analysts, business information specialists, data folks. So they rely on standardized reporting. They rely on the ability to be able to extract data in their own system in a way that, again, can be reported. And that then when we're comparing across the state, that that there's the ability to do so without needing to have, additional staff to do that. So again, so there is a group of people that are working very hard on trying to help us get to the point where not only is it the things that are on this, but also when we create some of these policies and we're saying, what are the metrics? Like, how do we know case planning, for instance, that we're doing case planning and that we're doing it well, or that we're doing it as indicated? So it's not just the things that are on this particular slide. It's going to be in addition to that, what are some of the recommendations coming out of these subgroups? And then really being able to say, okay, how do we get that data in a way that we can report it in a consistent way? Questions or comments on this one? Oh, I don't know. For me, I heard somebody starting to talk and I can't hear now. Is that in the room or online?
Oh, it might have, a couple of people passed by outside our room. It probably was that.
Oh, okay.
It might.
All right.
Look at it. I thought the same.
Like, I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe I'd have a lot. So, all right, hopefully this all makes sense. We can move on to the next slide then. All right, and this is a training, coaching, and quality assurance. And this policy was approved. And again, as Kelly indicated in the beginning, this is all on the CSAC website, so you can go up to see all the latest things. And essentially, this particular policy really talks about what is our initial base level training within the first year of employment if you are working with folks on supervision. And so you can see the 5 core areas that are that you need to have in the first year. Ongoing, what we're asking is that there's at least a minimum of 16 hours annually of ongoing EBP training, evidence-based practice training, which is really meant to be skill-based training on these particular areas. This does get into, we need to have a quality assurance plan that we report out on in our particular comprehensive plans. When those come up to say, I've been a trainer, I told you my passion is teaching, but that only gets you so far. It is the follow-up, it is the coaching, it is the observation, it is feedback, it is growth. We're never usually perfect. We're just not. Well, you can't be. We're working with humans, and every human that we interact with they're unique in their own way. We're unique in our own way, and so we're going to have some strengths and weaknesses, and it's important that we're constantly striving for growth and acquisition of skill, and that does not come unless we're doing what's in this deliverable 8 well. You have training decay or teaching decay that if you're not doing any of these things, it's going to fall off. It's, just like learning a foreign language or something. If you're not using it, if you're not practicing it, if you're not getting feedback, you're going to lose the skill. And so this is as important as anything of that nature. And so, so this particular policy, we also have a lot of subsequent document that came out that's very comprehensive. It's great for jurisdictions to go to say, what does it mean to do this, for instance, in motivational interviewing or in risk assessments? There are lots of different ways to provide this. There are also lots of different coaching models that you could actually engage in just nationally. Different spaces offer actual curricula related to this too, that people could choose from if they wanted to. But essentially that these are the core pieces to our work and what we need to be doing at any given time. The only thing I'd say about this particular policy, and we're going to get into definitions later this meeting, is we just need to make sure all of our definitions across all the policies are consistent. And so what we're going to do with these is to have a glossary and really basically vote on what do we think the particular, definition is for a word or a practice. And then those will get inserted into our policies so that across the board, we have that consistency. But other than that, this particular one has been approved. Any questions or comments on this one?
Yeah,
It's
no,
Troy
this
Stevens.
was-
Oh, go ahead. I can't tell who said it first.
Who?
Go ahead,
Go
Toby.
ahead, Toby.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, this is WebEx and we got a new system here. And I have no button here to raise my hand, so I'll figure that out.
No
For
problem.
next meeting. Anyway, so the one thing with this particular one, especially since it's been passed already, and I don't know how many of you folks that are attending here have been a part of tribal state relations training that was legislated through, Governor Walz to state employees. And if that's nothing that it's something that, shouldn't be, you've got 16 hours of minimal training. That's a legislative training. And actually, I think I should know this, and I don't, within what term of any staff's hiring are they required to take that? And that would be a good thing to have listed here somehow.
Absolutely. I also don't have the expertise on that. Kelly, do you by chance?
Yeah,
I can send stuff.
That would be great also. Sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
So what I was gonna say is, I know that management is required to go through it at the state level for state agencies, so I've been through it and it's fantastic, and I actually do think that everybody should go through it. But I think it would be a good discussion to have whether that is something that we should require on a broader basis. And I also wonder if we, like, for instance, had agents go through it, if we would overwhelm the current system that provides it. So we might have to think through that, but I love that suggestion. I think it is really great training and really important training.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Molly, my question, and maybe Kelly can help, or Donald, I was looking on the website, on our webpage and would it be nice if there was a link of the policies that CSAC has approved? And maybe I'm not seeing it there, but like I've kind of went through minutes and things trying to do that at times, and that would just be, if it's not there, that'd be a suggestion that we just have, these are ones that are approved. We don't have to have all the rest of them because they're not approved yet, but if we've approved them, even maybe if the commissioner hasn't, because that's this committee's work. So that was a question, like maybe they're there and I just can't see them, or if they're not, could we get them there?
What I can tell you is that Don was thinking along the same lines as you were. He's always 2 steps ahead of our committee in terms of what we need. What we have to work out though is the DOC also has policy manuals. So once it's like all the way through, it gets posted there. And so I'm concerned about version conflicts. And that was one of the issues. So like he had actually asked if he should put it up there now. And then I was like, oh, but then what if someone goes there instead of where it's official? So I'd be interested in feedback and what the committee would like to see on that front.
I understand that. And maybe that will be like, no, we can't post it because of that, but then maybe, and again, I'm kind of a simpleton here, but even then in the meeting announcements, if there's just a document, like these are the approved ones that gets emailed to us, because then I can keep it and look. I know Commissioner Mortensen has his big binder. I probably should have started around, but I didn't. So that would be, at least that'd be helpful to me. I don't know if other people would find that helpful or not. Just to keep me grounded, because I don't think about this every day like you all do. And so when I'm preparing I'm digging through minutes and it takes a while.
I wonder, Kelly, though, if we can hyperlink the DOC policy, because it's going to be its own space, on CSAC once approved, and then the draft, we just have draft policies or something. Or we can have them approved on our site, and then once they're officially in DOC, it's the hyperlink to yours, so that, again, you're not having a version issue.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think something like that we could definitely make work.
I've also dug through them looking, so I appreciate the comments.
Oh, good. I'm glad it's not just me.
All right, and then we can move to the next one, which is really the last one of the presentation here, and that is 10 and 11. And that is the, again, we don't want to have financial penalties for early discharge. And we also want this incorporated as a point in our workload study. And so the workload study that we are underway, there's a leadership group that this CSAC appointed individuals to. And then we're going to have a design work group that has not yet been established, but we've all been asked to provide some recommendations for who that would be, so that we can really think about so that when we're actually rolling out the workload study, that we're studying the correct variables, right? And so we want to make sure that we can quantify the administrative costs for supervision, not just like the probation officer or the supervised release folks. There's also recommendations for the capitated rate in a way that is equitable across the systems. And again, promotes all these evidence-based practices that I've just reviewed as well. And so, again, all of that work is underway. So stay tuned, because you'll get updates around that later and going forward as well. So those are the kind of where we're at, and I'm doing a time check with my co-facilitators here around like, you know, what we want to do at this point. Because we also have the rest of the agenda in terms of the dialogue.
Yeah, my thinking is, so I can see that our open meeting law presenter is here. So she was supposed to go at 10:45, but we have, to me, I think getting that done and then also doing the breakout that I'm sure Don Lanoy loves just as much as icebreakers. Those to me are like the most important things, but I would defer to my coworker, my co-chairs, to see what you all think.
And I'm looking at the agenda and I think the other items on there are fairly small. I mean, you look at the deliverable updates, we just did that through the slides. So I don't know if we necessarily have to go through that. The definitions piece to it is kind of our first review of that full sheet, I think here. Then it goes out to our respective committees at that point. So I think so I would agree with Kelly. I think is maybe we go into the, if our presenters here go into that, and then we kind of come back with the breakout sessions after, might make sense.
Completely comfortable with that. I definitely want to hear, especially for people, all of us on here, after hearing that, we have some key questions that is really important for us, I think, to grapple over and to get deeper into thinking about. So, but yes, if we have a guest for the open meeting law overview, then I'm happy to defer and come back.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Oh, thank you. Welcome. And thank you for coming, Grace.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me just get my PowerPoint up here. Okay. So my name is Grace Barron, and I'm a policy analyst with the Data Practices Office at the Minnesota Department of Administration. And today I'm going to give a brief overview about the requirements of the open meeting law. So the open meeting law is found in Minnesota Statutes Chapter 13D, and it states that all meetings of a public body must be open to the public with limited exceptions. And the public has the right to attend these meetings. The open meeting law itself is a fairly short law, and it focuses on technical requirements, but the Minnesota Supreme Court has stepped in to clarify the requirements from time to time. And the Supreme Court has identified 3 primary purposes of the law. The first is to prohibit actions taken at secret meetings. The second is to assure the public's right to be informed. And the third is to give the public an opportunity to present its views to public bodies. However, I'll note that the open meeting law does not actually require public bodies to reserve time for public comment, but many public bodies do choose to do so. So what is a meeting that's subject to the open meeting law? Well, the open meeting law does not actually define what a meeting is. But in Moberg versus Independent School District number 281, the Minnesota Supreme Court provided the quorum rule to determine when a meeting of a public body is occurring. And so there's 2 parts to this rule to determine when a gathering of a public body is going to be subject to the open meeting law. First, there must be a gathering of a quorum, which is generally a majority or more of the full public body, or a quorum of any of the public body's committees or subcommittees, etc. And second, the quorum of members must be discussing, deciding, or receiving information as a group on issues relating to its official business. If you have both of these factors occurring, then you have a meeting that is subject to the requirements of the open meeting law. So what are some gatherings that would not be subject to the law? Well, first, if you don't have a quorum of members. So for example, if 2 out of 7 board members met with a member of the public, 2 is not a quorum, so this would not be a meeting subject to the open meeting law. Other types of gatherings that are not subject to the law are chance or social gatherings and training or team building activities, so long as members are not discussing matters within the body's official duties or powers. So if you do find yourself together by chance, make sure that you're not discussing official business, because then it can be considered a meeting under the open meeting law. And that gets to the last bullet point, which is keep in mind public perception. We give technical assistance to members of the government and also the public about the requirements of these laws. So we have had members of the public contact us who are concerned when they go to an open meeting and then afterwards they go out to lunch and they see the whole board out to lunch together. If the board's not discussing or deciding or receiving information related to their official duties, this is not a meeting subject to the open meeting law, but you can see how some members of the public might perceive that they are still conducting official business. Here are a couple things to be cautious about. The first is the use of email. Public body members should avoid discussion of issues relating to their official business over email. In Advisory Opinion 09-020, the Commissioner of Administration found that a public body did not comply with the open meeting law when they exchanged certain email messages related to their official activities. However, the Commissioner noted that one-way communication is permissible. So if you send meeting materials via email to all board members, as long as there's no discussion or decision-making, that would be okay. Next, the Minnesota Supreme Court in Moberg noted the possibility that serial meetings could violate the open meeting law. Serial meetings are meetings of less than a quorum of the public body that are held with the intent to avoid public meetings to fashion agreement. Whether these meetings violate the open meeting law really depends on the circumstances. And to find a violation, it would need to be clear that the serial meetings were designed to avoid conducting business before the public. All right, there are three types of meetings under the open meeting law. First are regular meetings. These are your regularly scheduled meetings that occur bi-weekly or monthly and are planned out well in advance. The open meeting law requires that you keep a schedule of these meetings on file at your primary office or posted on your website. Next are special meetings. These are going to be any meeting that's not on your regular schedule. And note that if you have to reschedule a regular meeting, that's considered a special meeting. Notice that the special meeting must be posted on your website 3 days in advance, and the notice needs to include the date, time, place, and meeting purpose. When calculating the 3 days, you don't count the day you post the notice, but you do count the day of the meeting. So for example, you could post a special meeting notice on Friday and have the special meeting on Monday and still meet that 3-day requirement. I would also note that special meetings are limited to the purpose stated in that notice. So your notice needs to state all of the issues that will be addressed or acted upon at the special meeting. And lastly, there are emergency meetings. These involve issues or circumstances so pressing that the public body cannot provide that 3-day notice. Examples are events like a natural disaster or a health epidemic caused by an accident or terrorist activity. In the case of emergency meetings, the public body is required to make a good faith effort to notify media that have requested notice of such meetings. So as you can see, emergency meetings are going to be pretty rare. Okay, so the open meeting law says that meetings can only be closed if required or permitted in the law. Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 2 sets out when a meeting must be closed, and subdivision 3 provides the scenarios where a meeting may be closed. There's no general personnel exception as a basis to close a meeting. So if you're discussing personnel data or other personnel issues, that can't be the sole justification to close a meeting. Likewise, the fact that not public data will be discussed at a meeting is not a basis on its own to close a meeting. Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 1 states that, except as provided in this chapter, meetings may not be closed to discuss data that are not public data. Data that are not public data may be discussed at an open meeting without liability or penalty if the disclosure relates to a matter within the scope of the public body's authority and it's reasonably necessary to conduct the business or agenda item before the public body. So that provision really protects the public body from liability because they say that there's no liability if you're discussing not public data at an open meeting, but it doesn't require you to disclose not public data at an open meeting. So, for instance, a lot of people have hesitations about discussing individuals' identities at an open meeting, and there's definitely processes you can put in place so that you're not identifying individuals. For instance, you could use a moniker like individual one instead of using somebody's name when discussing a particular person. If one of the circumstances set out in section 13D.05 subdivision 2 or 3 are present, meaning that the statute says that you may or must close the meeting, before closing the meeting, the body must make a statement on the record that cites the legal authority to close the meeting and specifically describes the subject that will be discussed. Lastly, all closed meetings must be recorded, except for meetings closed on the basis of attorney-client privilege. And unless otherwise provided by the law, those recordings must be preserved for at least 3 years after the meeting. Meetings and technology. So this is found in 13D.015. State-level public bodies may hold phone or interactive tech meetings at any time if conditions are met. The requirements are that all members can hear one another in any testimony, that the public can hear discussion, votes, and testimony. Third is that at least one member of the entity is physically in the regular meeting room. And on this point, we advise different boards and committees that this member has to be a member of the board or a member of the committee rather than a member of staff. This is in line with the AGO's guidance and a Minnesota Supreme Court case, which held that an ex officio member was not a member of the governing body for purposes of the open meeting law. So that one person who needs to be in the room needs to be a member of the committee. And the last requirement is that votes are taken by roll call so that each member's vote on each issue can be identified and recorded. The public also has to be able to monitor these meetings from a remote site if practicable. And so this requirement can be met by providing links to watch via computer, which I see you have all done already, or you can provide dial-in information for a conference call. Additionally, the meeting notice should state that members may participate remotely. And the same time and posting methods for regular, special, and emergency meetings still apply, but the notice must also be posted on the website 10 days in advance of a regular meeting. Records of meetings. So with limited exceptions, the open meeting law does not actually require preparation of agendas or minutes. However, section 13D.01 subdivision 4 requires public bodies to record and maintain votes of its members. In addition, Minnesota's Official Records Act, which is Minnesota Statute section 15.17, requires the public body to make and preserve all records necessary to a full and accurate knowledge of their official activities. So this is often accomplished through the preparation of minutes. Under section 13D.05 subdivision 1, a record of an open meeting, regardless of its form, shall be public. So meeting minutes are public. Also keep this in mind if you use technology to record or document your meetings. There's no requirement to record open meetings, but if you do, that recording is going to be public. So for instance, if you discuss public data at an open meeting and then you record that meeting, the recording itself is going to become public. Now for penalties and remedies. What happens if there's a violation of the open meeting law? If a court finds that there was an intentional violation of the open meeting law, the member faces a personal liability of $300, a $300 fine. And if there's 3 separate intentional violations, the member forfeits their office. The court can also award reasonable cost disbursements and attorney's fees. But note that there's no way to reverse actions that the public body took while in violation of the law. So sometimes that comes up with members of the public who think there was a violation and that certain action should be reversed, but that's not actually a remedy that is available under the open meeting law. I just wanted to close with a little bit about our office. We're a small office in the Department of Administration, and we provide informal advice and technical assistance to government, public, media, and the legislature. That means you can reach out to us if you have any questions about the open meeting law or the Data Practices Act. We also have many resources available, including our website, newsletter, and YouTube videos. We assist the Commissioner of Administration in issuing advisory opinions, and we provide legislative assistance and training. This is our contact info. We respond to questions via phone and email, and then you can also see our website there and our YouTube channel, which has a lot of informational videos on it about the open meeting law and the Data Practices Act in general. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions, but if you think of a question later, please feel free to reach out to us.
Thanks, Grace. One question is, can you share this PowerPoint with us?
Yes,
We can add that, okay, to our materials, but I appreciate you being here. Yeah, other questions or thoughts?
Apologize if I went a little fast. Overview presentation goes pretty quickly. But yeah, so I'm not hearing anyone, but like I said, if something comes up later, or if you're looking at the slides and have a question, feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call, and we'll get back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. So what we'd like to do next is get into those breakout sessions. I'm wondering if everybody needs a 5-minute break though. And then we can get our minds right. And I want to check in with Kelly and John too real quick. So I don't know if I can give you a quick call, Kelly, but yeah, so let's take a 5-minute break. I have 10:50. Let's come back in about 5 minutes or so.
Perfect. Where are you? Yeah, that's kind of what.
Molly.
Hey, Molly.
Looks like we're done.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Kobe, thank you.
I love it when I'm hearing talking on the way back, and I know our group too, like it's had a lot to say, so it's great. How about we do some reporting out? So hopefully everybody has someone identified. And we can go, let's go with so I was in one group online. I'm going to just designate like Becky's group as being the other group, right? Because there's two groups online and then in the person room. In the person group. So let's go with the Becky's group on the first question there. What's the most exciting work that CSEC's currently working on? Oh, you're muted. Or
You're muted, yeah.
And it may not be you, Becky, reporting. I just am trying to easily identify. So whoever.
I did the unmute thing. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. Yes, it is me reporting. Thank you, Molly. We had a great group. Amber, Kevin, Tracy, Kurt, myself. I did take some some notes on these, and I'm going to just list off what we have, but please jump in, any of you, if I misspeak or say something incorrect. We did decide that Stearns County should get all the money from the whole state. Oh, no, I apologize.
That's high level, right?
Okay, thank you. That's my mistake. I wrote that down wrong.
It's really funny because Nick said the same thing. So you guys are like really, infiltrating all these groups.
Well, he and I worked close together back years ago, so that's probably why. In all seriousness, excellent conversation about what's exciting. We talked about being more collaborative now than we ever have been in the state. One of the probably most exciting, the LSCMI validation. To have a consistent assessment tool, the basis across the state of how we do supervision, all 87 counties, to have more consistency is really exciting. We talked about the case planning. We've talked about some of our success, the ISR policy changes, things that we've done here, and really being time frame oriented, action oriented, that we're not just talking at this meeting, that things are happening. There's a ton of folks in subgroups that we want to acknowledge that are doing this work, but having this more action oriented is definitely something we said was exciting. Concerns? Should I keep going or?
Let's do the exciting stuff and then come back around if that's all right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Lane is going to speak for our group.
I think I can sum this up pretty well, that it seemed to be a consensus in the group that what's exciting is that we are making intentional efforts to have policies that are uniform and equitable across all areas of the state, whether it's greater Minnesota, metro, rural, etc. But that all of these, there's consistent and uniform and equitable policies that apply to all areas across the state. I also did note, just on a personal level, today's particular meeting was just exciting from my perspective, because as a newer committee member, just started in July, this was helpful to have sort of this background and foundation, etc., and hear discussion on it. So I appreciated that.
Thank you. And how about in the room? Who's your spokesperson?
Carter agreed to take notes, so if we're okay.
I can do that. That's fine. So we felt the most exciting was just the breadth of the work in general. Like, holy cow, we're getting a lot done. We're accomplishing a lot. Our scope is really wide, but yet we're getting things done. Standardization, consistency across from coast to coast, sort of. The focus on EVP, I think, came up again and again, like the end user, the case planning, the work that's going in from going to kind of the old school when I used to be a probation officer years ago, to the really skilled level, meaning that the work that we're doing here is actually going to change the interface between the client and is actually gonna make a huge difference. The collaboration that we're able to have here, and then finally the system itself, the system that we've set up here, the way in which this is all working, and the system that I didn't have anything to do with it, but it seems like it's exciting that it's gonna work, like it's working and it's going to continue to work and it's not gonna fall on its face. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll reverse the order now. So how about in the room there, Carter? What are the most concerning issues? And then we'll go to Lane.
Workload study, funding, shifts from just in general shifts from the federal government, state government to counties. And hopefully we can create some sort of an equitable system of funding, funding at a higher level, the way it sounds. So that's what almost everybody talked about was the level of funding was the most concerning.
Okay, thank you. Lane? Yeah, so, okay. I think some of the concerns we talked about are resources available to carry out the policies, and what does that, while we're striving to make things uniform and equitable across the state, is that possible in certain areas because of resources, and that could mean could imply community resources as well as individual resources. We discussed same funding as a concern. And what is the standard that the policies are striving to address? Like, is that standard, what is the standard, and will the standard be consistent across the state as well? So for instance, in one part of the state is, if you can strive to meet 4 of the 5 areas, is that different than another part that perhaps meets all 5? And so what does that standard look like? And also ensuring that individual needs can be met. Also the other point that was raised was also recognizing that each justice partner may have different perspectives and different goals. And so despite the policies that are being put into place, or the recommendations for the policies that are being put into place, we still have to work within the systems that all of us work within, and recognizing that other justice partners may have, different perspectives and different goals as it relates to their perspective and their involvement in the bigger system. Great, thank you. And Becky.
I think a lot of what has been said, we talked about the full funding. I mean, I think that's number one. We really can't do the work without the funding. Also rural Minnesota or just smaller organizations, that was Lane just said really well. How does this work? How do we implement? I don't want to leave people behind as we're going on this work. Other concerns can be just things that we're working through as this committee. This is relatively new. What is the process? It goes to the DOC commissioner. How long is that? What does that mean when it comes back? Just some of those process things that we're still working out, or what happens if there's disagreements and those kinds of things. I think are things we're going to work through, but it's just stuff that's new to us because of this process. So did I miss anything else, folks?
Wonderful. All right. And then the last question, what future topics should CSAC consider? We'll do even a different report out, and I'll start with Wayne this time. We talked about juvenile specific policies primarily, but we also had a lot of discussion on the other 2 questions. And so didn't have much time left to address that one. Molly, I think that was the main one I highlighted that we raised. Was there any other ones that I missed? No, I think that was right. Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. All right, let's go back to the room then. Carter.
We had a bunch. Juvenile was the first one that came up. Housing. We could solve housing just in general, great. Also, those releasing housing, reentry, and some of those issues. The elimination of fees is a topic, drug testing and best practices, and then the use of a trauma assessment.
Thank you.
Topics.
That is a robust list. And we should add, yeah, you're right, Lane, that was brought up the drug testing and the philosophy and those sorts of things are on that too. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Molly, thank you. I actually, just as I was listening to those ideas, I did neglect to include one that we talked about that, as well as just like the what about how agents are implementing across the state these policies, and are some agents or even some areas implementing them far differently than other agents? Like, how do you address the individual agents and how they are carrying out these policies?
Absolutely. And Becky.
Juveniles. I think everybody said that that's pretty exciting. I know that they're a smaller number, but they're extremely important and they're at the beginning of the stage. We talked about even diversionary things, what happened, what's our role in that? And what just was mentioned about the quality assurance process. I just heard that from Lena. How do we measure what's been going on? How do we assure that we're all doing this together? Funding, again, brought up funding, because if we don't continue to address that as a future topic, again, we can't do this work. Finally, the really good comment here is the county has a lot of responsibilities and a lot of changes coming. For example, the African Child, the Act through social services, and I apologize, the commissioner had it perfect and then I just botched it. But the responsibility is, how does the county balance that? Because that's also good work that needs to happen with often the same population. And how do we work together and collaborate? And how do we balance all this good work as a county? And each county has different polls coming at it. So those are just some future topic ideas we had. Unless I missed other things, please jump in.
All right. I appreciate all of this. These are exactly what, is to get deeper into these conversations about these topics and deliverables. And as we continue to do so going forward. And again, just really wanted to make sure that we just paused for a moment, took some time to really think about where we come from, where we are, and where we're going. It's really important. So are there any comments or questions related to anything that you've heard before we move on?
Under the table for you next time.
Then I think, John, I will kick it to you then for the next agenda item.
Perfect. Thank you, Molly. So we've talked a handful of times, I think, at the CSAC level on the definitions piece to it. As policies are coming to us, we were seeing a number of different definitions, similar, but they were worded different. So I think we had to ask at the CSAC level is, how do we get to that common language in the definitions? So we have a really good form here, and I don't know if Don wants to share it on the screen, that outlines a lot of the definitions. There's only a few of them on there that we have maybe different language, if you want to say, for them. If you look at it, case plan is one, and I skimmed through them. And so they're the boxed ones, as you can see here. So what I think we'll do is just take a look at it today, if there's any general comments, and then after today, bring it back to our respective organizations. And then next week, we'll come back and take a bigger look at it. So we'll follow our roadmap, if you want to say, on how we approve things through CSAC. So as you can see, case planning, and I think the top two might even be the same or extremely similar, and the third one may be a little shrunk down. Even case planning, I think if I looked at them, they were similar or the same, might be one or two words different. So a lot of them are really similar. We just got to kind of agree on one common language. You see criminogenic needs as three of them, and then evidence-based practices. So just maybe any general comments as you see this?
I had one,
Yeah.
which isn't about any of those, but the first one was at-risk person. And I looked at, what my question was, what if it was a child or a non-romantic partner? We have, victim, but I didn't know, I didn't see that definition before. So I just was wondering if there needs to be an extension to that, or an additional word or additional additional word for a definition of someone who is not an intimate or romantic partner.
Good point. Yeah.
Maybe if you just get rid of that first sentence, because then the next sentence includes everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So good point. Any other general comments that we see it?
Yeah, the case plan and case planning are certainly in these, but they're in others, and we tried to make them similar and follow in case plan. The first two are the same, and my intention would be to replace the ISR policy definition when that comes up with similar language as the first two. Same.
Yep. So, yeah, and that's a good point, as Carter brings up. I think one policy that we proved through already, so that may have, if we as CSAC agree to a common definition, or we will, whichever definition it is, if the old definition's on it, when it comes up for review, that's when it would be updated at that point, as Carter noted. So, yeah. Any other comments? What I'd ask is, and that's a good point, not just the boxed areas to review, but this is good to review as committee members, bring it back to your organizations. We'll bring it back next meeting and spend a little bit more time talking through them. See if we can come up with that common definition. So thank you. Other or how about deliverable updates? Don, if you could bring up just a spreadsheet, I think I just want to walk through it a little bit. It's a good reminder for committee members that this comes out every month and it has updates on there, and just kind of walk through what it looks like. I don't think we're going to walk through each deliverable because Molly and Kelly did a really good job doing that. So we have a report that goes out to each one of our subcommittees or our groups that are out there. And it kind of highlights all these topics that you see on there, right? What tasks they're working on, who's the committee, where's the status, what's key activities are they working on. And when we get this report from Don every month, you'll see that the bolded section on the top, that's usually the update. And as you can see on the top one there, I think that one ISR policy has been approved by Commissioner Snell and has a date on there. So that's the most recent update on it. So really kind of look at those key activities, challenges or needs they have, and then any CSAC action. And as I skimmed through it, if I missed anything, anybody that saw in there, the only one that I saw challenge and needs and CSAC action right now was under deliverable 10, which is plan to eliminate financial penalties for early discharge. Some of the challenges and needs I have noted are there any non-negotiables on what we include in the study and what do we not include? And then CSAC actions is we will be forming a 20 to 25 member design committee from all three delivery systems and from CSAC that would move forward and help probably answer some of those questions. So that just kind of highlights of what we see on there, the updates that we get from them. So questions or comments?
On the process or that one specifically?
Maybe either is fine, but yeah, process makes sense. Yep.
Process makes sense.
Yep. Any questions maybe on process first? And then how about that? Yeah, Carter, go ahead on that one.
Yeah, so we are moving. I guess I'm hoping to have some information from this group on how much direction CSAC or the leadership team that I think Molly and I, and there's probably a couple others on it too, I apologize, are on, to give them maybe some guardrails going into that design committee. For example, one of the things that I think about is, are we going to hand off to this design committee? We're gonna gather information on whatever it is that you want to gather information on, or do we say we want you to gather information on felonies and targeted misdemeanors? So this is an example that I made up. And so the committees, the leadership committee's going well, a little bit slower than I would hope, quite honestly. And then I think that question in my mind really is what really is the mission of ours? And I try to continue to ask those that were moderating, and where do we need to be to give more direction? So that's pretty open, I know.
Well, one thing that I would ask is, Julie, are you on the?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think part of our guardrails are in the RFP that was drafted, that was reviewed by CSAC. And so I honestly can't remember what it says anymore, but I feel like we did give some specific direction within the bones of that about the types of topics and parameters of service that we expected to get information back about. And maybe I'm not connecting it as well to where you are now, but to me that would be
okay.
That's kind of where I was going, because I remember I think Jake was on that, myself and Julie, I think you were on that, right? And we had a very robust discussion at the subcommittee group and then at CSAC on and what to include on that. And that might have been some of the setting the parameters up on what that workload study looks like. I don't remember what's on there. I'd have to pull it up again, but that might be a good starting point, yeah. Because we at CSAC did approve that and set some parameters, I thought.
Is that helpful though? Cause I haven't seen.
It's a good reminder, I think with, and I missed a couple of the meetings, due to scheduling changes, but yeah, that's a really good time with this work group, sub-work group coming up to go back and look at that and put some guardrails around things, in terms of guidance. But it does just seem like it could be everything in the kitchen sink. So I could even see if the RFP isn't, we still might need some guidance around things about, or who is going to give that guidance.
Right, and then is that the leadership team's review? And then my question here is there any other additional things that, you know, the leadership team, for example, tells the work group, you know, here's your guidance, and we come back here, and I don't want to come back here and you say, no, that's not what we were hoping for. So that's all. I'm new here. I just put it on there. Like, that's what I think that we're supposed to be doing, is coming back and saying, yes, is this correct? This is what we're thinking. Does that seem?
Yeah, RFP is a good place.
Yep.
I think so too. And they were a good reminder because I was not on that subcommittee to bring back to that. So I think that a combination of those, so the workload study is, again, there's going to be people taking the surveys that were completed, unpacking it all. And you're right, Carter. So it's going to be this leadership group, setting guardrails as indicated by the RFP in this group. But then I'm hoping next month we're bringing back then what we're recommending, so that you all here then can say, yes, you are on the right track. This is what we want the design team to do. So that is a really important point that you're making.
I would also, the other thing, I guess I'm just talking out loud, so. Yeah, but I think the other thing to remember is we are asking at the end of the day, like, have we set up our funding formula correctly? Like, we need the workload to inform our funding formula. Right now, that funding formula does not cover ISR, and it does not cover pretrial. It covers adult and juvenile, normal or regular supervision and supervised release. So there's some things that are kind of like out of scope of the workload study today, just for now. Doesn't mean that we can't ever come back and do a workload study on those things as well. But right now, I feel like that's the only thing that we have sort of like structurally that might be out of bounds.
Can I ask one additional question then?
Yeah.
So for example, for misdemeanors, or we're funding non-targeted misdemeanors right now in some cases, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Is there an opinion on that?
I don't think we've had that. I don't believe that was addressed in the RFP process to it. So I mean, that would be, that's going to make a larger discussion. I think it would have to be probably back to our respective organizations and back here.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't remember if we set those parameters, and if we did, it would be addressed and then we approved it. Otherwise, we'd have to have that discussion, I think, right?
What targeted versus
Non-targeted, if we're funded, because right now I think we are, right? So it'd be
Yeah,
a
right
change,
now we're
it would be
funded.
change in our current practice. So I just say
Yeah.
a change in our current practice, we'd have to have a discussion at this level, I think, right?
Right.
So I think the guidance would be right. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the funding formula covers all misdemeanors.
I think it does, yes.
You count all misdemeanors.
Yep.
So.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
the question then is, are we okay in the guidance of study all misdemeanors with calling out targeted misdemeanors to evaluate, like the different categories, so to speak, in this way as we look forward?
Yep. Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's clear as mud, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some counties are putting speeding tickets.
Yeah, and that's why it's a good discussion, I think. And I'm not saying I'm not opposed or not opposed, but I agree. I think it's a bigger discussion at this level potentially.
Yeah, some counties are putting driving after revocations on probation. Some aren't. They're like, no, that's really not our role. And that's what is it that they're actually doing with those cases? They're getting funded. I think it's I personally think that we should narrow the scope.
Yep. And yeah, and so it's a bigger discussion, and we've had that here and many times talking about is it when the judge orders somebody on and says you're going to do this, and this is what the county does, is that the county responsibility? Is it part of the supervision funding formula, right? So I mean, there was a larger discussion we've had, right? So I mean, that hits all three delivery systems. We see that at some DOC contract, at CCA and CPO. I think so that when we had that discussion, I think it was global. It really was. So you're right. I think it's.
I think it's about
limited,
equitability.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. Absolutely. I would agree. Yep. So how do we have that the bigger discussion?
So I don't know what the timeline is either, but I mean, the question there would be like, is there like a small piece of feedback that you need to bring a recommendation here and have us review it, but I don't know how much time you have. So that's
A good question.
I don't know. I mean, I know that they're just putting together the work study. I'm sorry, the design group is just being established right now. So I feel like that means that there's probably time to bring
Yeah.
something
Okay.
back.
Yep, because as we know, our process, it comes here, then it goes to our respective organizations, and it comes back here. So that we're 2 to 3 months out before we make any approval on some of that stuff as well.
And even if the design committee says we're gonna study all these things, it doesn't mean in the end we still fund it. I mean, you can study all kinds of things and then
Yeah.
narrow the scope later.
Right.
I just don't wanna, like, it seems like we've brought it up and it kind of goes nowhere. And I thought this would be a good discussion to bring back here, like that one in particular. That-
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, because you don't want to collect so much stuff that, I mean, it's good to, if collecting it and they can do something with it or, not included in whatever they're proposing. But not, just having some sort of guardrails, I think this is helpful just discussing it here, but yeah.
I think one thing though, my opinion that we want to be careful about is if our current funding formula is funding those things, we need to at least look at that before making a decision. We need to know if you're going to exclude something, what that actually means for jurisdictions and things moving forward. So even if philosophically we can agree, I think we need to unpack that in this study to say, okay, and this is what we believe going forward. And you're right, Carter, we need to make then decisions, like what does the state responsible for and what's county decisions? But if we took it out now, we have no idea what that might mean. And I just think that would be too soon. So I don't know. I think in scope should be what's currently funded, at least to analyze.
Okay.
Yeah,
I could-
that's actually a really good argument for
At least studying it.
studying. it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Good point, Molly. I mean, it brings me back to the 3-year average when we looked at that piece to it. When we looked at if we were gonna look at just I'm drawing a blank, the supervision.
Oh, the single year.
The single year, yep, the single year population, there was some fairly large losers and some fairly large winners, I think, on all 3 delivery systems. We saw that. So taking a look at it and say, how do we apply that and just look at it, at least starting with that 3-year average until we look at the caseload study, which will feed into the funding formula piece to it, right? So that kind of fits into it as well. How do we, you don't want to have a large hit on one county or one agency without reviewing it. So yeah, goes back to the funding that we've talked about on the concerns.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? I don't know, is this a good time, Carter? We had the 2 sheets on there as well from
I just included those. That's kind of where we're at with, they're still in draft form. I just throw them in there. Is this helpful? Should I?
What are they?
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
A terrible question. So this is the draft client supervision time. So this would be how we would they would document the time for each of those tasks that they're doing on these forms effectively. So
This is a sample of what like the data collection, and this is the sample of what you guys are looking at or what you will develop for data collection.
Yep.
And then that data is gonna form the basis of the study. That's what we'll be analyzing.
Yep, correct.
But
Questions all or comments on the two forms, just in general? Hearing none, any other general questions? Otherwise, we'd leave it open if there's any other additional business that anyone has. Hearing none, I'll pass it over to Kelly then.
Great. Great, we pretty much have gone through all the agenda. We always put time on our agenda for public comments. What I'm looking for is, we don't have anyone physically in the room right now. There's no public comment on our end. There's a couple people still online. So what I'm gonna ask Dawn to do is just to unmute your mics. And so if there's anything that you would like to say to the committee as public comment, now is the time, or you can mute yourself if you're not interested. Any public comment?
Unmuted the attendees.
All right, so I'm not hearing anything, so I'm gonna assume that there's no desire to make a comment today. With that, that brings us to the end of the agenda. I know we've lost some folks along the way, but I hope this was helpful for everyone. I know for me as the chair, the breakout was awesome and really helped me think about where we want to go. So thanks everyone for doing that. And anything else that anyone wants to say or bring up before we adjourn?
Kelly?
Hearing nothing. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We had discussed last meeting about possibly changing the dates for November and December's meetings.
Oh,
I forgot that part. Yes. What, Thanksgiving and Christmas falls, but you know, we should do
Because-
that. So Don. you
Yeah,
just do
because
that?
currently the November meeting falls the day before Thanksgiving and the December meeting falls on Christmas Eve.
So what were some of the options that you were gonna provide to us?
Give me a second, because I know I sent that out in an email to you. I apologize. I thought I had this down and I don't seem to.
Well, let me actually tack in a different direction since we have lost a significant number of people. I think we probably need to send out a survey and get responses that way. Would that work for you, Don?
I could definitely do that.
So probably what we're looking at is maybe moving it a week earlier in both cases. That's probably like the easiest thing to do, but there are definitely other times where we have room availability in November and December. So we'll narrow it down to send a few dates, send a survey, and have you guys, like the most popular choice wins. Does that sound good? I'm worried about all the people we lost, so
That's a good point.
I think we'll get a good date. I'd wanted to send it out regardless, so might as well just have them do it for everyone. All right,
I have a
anything
quick
else?
question. It's Michelle. I was just wondering if there's more ways that I can get involved, or if there's anything that you guys need that I could be helping you with.
Definitely. Are you interested in like maybe serving on any of the committees that we have?
Sure, as long as I'm able to like meet virtually, because I am down in Winona.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
well,
would
how about,
everyone need help?
we can connect. So let's connect offline and see what your interests might be, and we can connect you to any of those groups that you might be interested.
Okay. Do you have my email? You probably have my email or you can get it from Don.
We do, yeah.
Okay.
We'll follow up. And thank you for wanting to do that. I have to get off of you, so you can find a butt. All right. Anything else? All right, well, hearing nothing else, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting and we will see you all in October. We have that meeting date nailed down. Thanks, folks. The meeting's adjourned. Bye.
Did that one fall on MCA for sure?